She caught me looking and didn't look away. The first thing I noticed was that she didn't rush. Everyone else moved through the cafe like they were late for something. Cups lifted, chairs scraped, phones checked, but she took her time. Stirred her coffee once. Let the spoon rest. Looked out the window like she wasn't trying to escape anything behind her. I don't remember deciding to look at her. I just did, and then I didn't stop. She was older, mid-40s, maybe a little more, and it showed in ways that felt steady. Not tired, not soft, just certain. Her hair fell the way it wanted to, not the way magazines insist. There was a confidence in her posture, but also a looseness, like she'd learned which battles weren't worth holding tension for. I was 23 and pretending to read something on my phone I'd already finished twice. The quiet between us wasn't empty. It felt held. She caught me looking. That should have been the end of it. The polite glance away. The embarrassment. The moment folded and forgotten. Instead, she stayed. Her eyes met mine, calm, unreadable, and she didn't look away. Not right away. Not at all. My chest did something stupid, like it forgot its job. I looked down first. I always did back then. When I looked up again, she was smiling, but not the kind that invites. The kind that notices. I wondered if she knew what that did to me. We didn't speak that day. We didn't need to. The moment followed me out the door, sat beside me on the bus, waited while I unlocked my phone again and again like it might explain something. It didn't. I told myself it was nothing. A look. A coincidence. People look at each other all the time. But the next afternoon, she was there again. Same table. Different dress. Still unhurried. This time, when I ordered my coffee, my hands shook just enough that the lid rattled. I sat 2 tables away, close enough to notice the way she exhaled before lifting her cup, like she was grounding herself. Close enough to hear the faint scrape of ceramic. She spoke first. "Does it always take you that long to sit down?" she asked without looking at me. I laughed before I meant to. Too loud. Too fast. I was deciding, I said, about whether I was allowed to. She turned then. Really turned. Faced me like the rest of the room didn't exist. Her eyes were warm. Curious. Careful. "You're allowed," she said. There was something in the way she said it. Not flirtation, not permission, but acknowledgement. Like she saw the hesitation and chose not to make it smaller. We talked about nothing important. Whether that couldn't decide. Music playing too softly to Shazam. The way the barista always forgot her name, even though she came every day. She told me she was 46. Didn't apologize for it. Didn't explain. I told her my age and waited for the shift. It didn't come. Instead, there was a pause. A long one. She studied my face like she was trying to remember something she'd misplaced years ago. "You look at people like you're afraid to interrupt them," she said. I swallowed. "You didn't seem interruptible." Her smile changed. Thinner. Realer. Most people don't notice that. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop. Someone laughed too loud near the counter. Time kept moving, inconsiderate as ever. She reached for her bag. "I should go," she said, but didn't stand. I nodded, though I didn't want her to. Then she met my eyes again, held them this time, deliberate, and something unspoken passed between us. Not promise, not warning, possibility. The bell above the cafe door rang. She stood, and just before she turned away, her phone buzzed in her hand, once sharp and insistent. And the look that crossed her face told me whatever was waiting on that screen was about to change everything between us. She didn't come back for 3 days. I noticed because I kept checking. Same time, same table, same coffee cooling untouched in my imagination. I told myself it was habit, not disappointment. Told myself I'd imagine the weight of that look she gave me when her phone buzzed, the way her shoulders stiffened like something had reached up and taken hold of her spine. On the 4th day, she was there, later than usual. Coat still on, hair slightly damp, like she'd been caught in rain she hadn't planned for. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind you carry carefully so no one asks questions. I said too quickly, as I slid into the chair across from her without asking this time. She smiled, softer than before. You decided faster today. I didn't want to overthink it. Her fingers tightened around her cup. That's usually when trouble starts. We sat with that. The cafe felt smaller, quieter, like it was listening. She told me her name. I won't write it here, not because it's secret, but because saying it still feels like touching something fragile. She asked about mine like it mattered, repeating it once under her breath, testing the sound. I learned she'd been married for 22 years. She corrected gently when I hesitated. Still is. On paper. I didn't know where to put my eyes after that, so I watched the steam rise from her coffee. It twisted, disappeared. I moved out 6 months ago, she continued. Not dramatically. No shouting. Just quiet realizing. I nodded, even though I didn't really understand. My longest relationship had lasted a year and ended because we wanted different cities, different futures, different everything. I didn't tell her that. It felt too small. Instead, I said, "Do you miss him?" She didn't answer right away. Looked at the window, at her reflection layered over the street outside. I miss who I was when I thought I knew where my life was going, she said. That landed somewhere deep in me, somewhere unprepared. I wanted to tell her I'd never been married, never promised anything that big to anyone, that I was still figuring myself out, that I was probably exactly the kind of complication she didn't need. I didn't, because the way she looked at me then, really looked, made me feel seen in a way that scared me. You're very young, she said, not unkindly. I smiled. You're not. She laughed at that, a quiet, surprised sound, then stopped herself, like she'd remembered something important. This, she said, gesturing between us, small and contained, isn't simple. I know. You don't, she replied. Not yet. There it was. The line. The reason we shouldn't. The age gap sat between us like a third presence. Unspoken, heavy, along with the fact that she still wore a ring sometimes. Out of habit, she said. Along with the way people would look if they knew. Along with the voice in my head telling me to stand up, walk away, leave this intact. I stayed. She reached for her bag again, slower this time. When she stood, I stood too, suddenly aware of how close we were. The space between us felt charged, like the air before a storm. Thank you, she said, for listening. Anytime. She hesitated. Then, almost without looking, her fingers brushed my wrist. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't long, but it was enough to make my breath catch. And when she pulled away, the warmth lingered, heavy and unmistakable, like a question neither of us was ready to ask out loud. I tried to stop going. That was my first mistake, thinking distance was something you could just decide on. The cafe was on my way home. I could have taken another street. I didn't. I told myself I was just passing by, just checking if she was there the way you check the weather even when you're already outside. She was. Not at the table this time. Standing near the counter. Talking to a man. He was older than her. Not by much. Familiar in the way he leaned in, the way she didn't flinch when he touched her elbow. His hand stayed there a second too long. Something tight pulled behind my ribs. I almost left. I actually turned toward the door before she looked up and saw me. Her expression changed. Not shock, not fear. Calculation. She said something to him I couldn't hear. He glanced at me, then back at her, brows knitting like he was trying to place me in a story he didn't know he was part of. She walked over. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Neither of us moved. Is he? I stopped myself. Swallowed. I didn't know. He's my husband, she said. Not defensively. Tiredly. We're meeting about paperwork. I nodded like that fixed anything. There was guilt in her eyes then. Sharp. Immediate. Like she'd caught herself wanting something she didn't have permission to want. This was a bad idea, she added. The word that hung there. Undefined. Heavy. I didn't mean to interrupt, I said, already stepping back. I'll go. She reached for me without thinking. Caught my sleeve. Let go just as fast, like the contact burned. Don't, she said. Then quieter, please. Behind her, he was watching now, pretending not to. I stayed. God help me, I stayed. We didn't sit together. We didn't touch again. We talked about nothing, safe, meaningless things while time pressed in on us. Every sentence felt like it had an echo. Every pause felt like exposure. When he finally left, kissing her cheek like muscle memory, something in her collapsed inward. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since before I walked in. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For pulling you into this. You didn't, I said. I walked in. She studied my face like she was memorizing it for later, for when she'd need to remind herself why this hurt. We have to stop, she said. I knew that was the right answer. I hated it anyway. Okay, I said too quickly. Her mouth tightened, like she'd expected me to argue, like she wanted me to. We stood outside together after, neither of us moving toward our separate directions. The streetlight flickered. A bus roared past, loud and oblivious. I don't usually do things like this, she said. Me neither. That wasn't true. I never done anything like this. She laughed once, without humor, then looked at me, really looked, and for a second the space between us disappeared. I could see it. The version of us that leaned in instead of away. Her hand lifted, hovered near my chest. Stopped. Someone cleared their throat behind us. I stepped back. She dropped her hand. We didn't kiss, which somehow felt worse. She turned to leave, then paused. Don't wait for me, she said, like a warning. I watched her walk away anyway, already knowing I wouldn't listen, already feeling the pull tighten, quiet and relentless, drawing me closer even as everything in her life pushed us apart. I didn't wait for her. I told myself I wouldn't, and then I did it anyway, standing outside the cafe at the wrong hour, checking my phone too often, pretending I wasn't listening for her footsteps. Days passed, then a week. Silence stretched until it started to feel intentional. That hurt more than I expected. When she finally texted, it was short. Can we talk? No punctuation. No apology. I answered immediately. I hated that about myself. We didn't meet at the cafe. That felt too exposed now. She suggested a quiet park a few blocks away, the kind with benches that faced each other like they were meant for difficult conversations. She was already there when I arrived, sitting stiffly, hands folded in her lap. She looked beautiful in a restrained way. Hair pulled back, coat buttoned wrong, like she'd dressed in a hurry and didn't want to admit it. I shouldn't have asked you here, she said before I could sit. You said inui. You asked, I said. I came. Her jaw tightened. That's part of the problem. I waited. I'd learned she needed space to choose her words, like each one came with a cost. He knows, she said finally. My stomach dropped. Knows what? That there's someone, she said. He doesn't know who, or how old, or that you exist in any real way. She looked at her hands. But he knows I'm not present. Jealousy hit me before guilt did. Hot and embarrassing. Is he trying to fix it? I asked. She didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. Yes, she said. In his way. The wind moved through the trees above us, rattling leaves that hadn't decided whether to fall yet. A couple passed by, laughing, unaware of how close I was to saying something reckless. I don't want to be your escape, I said. Her head snapped up. You're not. Then what am I? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. That did something to me. The not knowing. The way she wouldn't claim me, wouldn't release me either. I've been trying to do the right thing my whole life, she said quietly. And I don't even know what that is anymore. Fear crept in then. Not of her husband. Of losing this without ever touching it. I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter, I said. My voice shook. I didn't stop it. You don't get to pull me close and then ask me to disappear. She flinched. That was new. I never asked you to. You did. I cut in, then softened. Not with words. Silence stretched. Heavy. Exposing. She stood abruptly, pacing once, then turning back to me like she'd reached the end of a thought she couldn't avoid. I think about you more than I should, she said. There. I said it. My chest tightened. That's not nothing. No, she whispered. It isn't. She stepped closer. Too close. I could smell her perfume, subtle, familiar. Her eyes dropped to my mouth, then lifted again, conflicted and raw. "This is the part where I'm supposed to stop," she said. I didn't move, didn't give her an excuse. Her hand came up, resting against my chest, fingers splayed like she needed to feel something solid. My breath caught. Hers did too. She leaned in, just a little, enough that I knew, whatever happened next, there was no going back. Her phone rang. Not buzzed. Hung. Loud and sudden, cutting straight through the space between us like it had been waiting for that exact second. She froze. Her hand was still on my chest. I could feel her pulse through her fingers, fast and panicked. For one irrational moment, I thought she might ignore it, let it ring until it stopped. Choose this. She didn't. She pulled back like she'd touched something dangerous and fumbled for her phone, turning away as she answered. I caught my name in her eyes before she looked down, an apology already forming, whether she meant it or not. "Yes," she said. Then, after a pause, "I'm at the park." My stomach tightened. I stood there, useless, watching the back of her coat move slightly with each breath. I could hear the other voice faintly through the speaker, male, controlled, trying too hard to sound calm. She closed her eyes. "No," she said quietly. "I didn't plan this." Another pause. Longer this time. "I know what I said," she added. "I just needed air." I already knew this wasn't about air. She listened, jaw set, nodding even though he couldn't see her. When she spoke again, her voice changed, flattened, careful. "Yes. Tonight," she said. "We'll talk tonight." The call ended. She stayed turned away for a second too long, like she needed to rearrange herself before facing me again. When she did, something essential had shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by resolve sharp enough to cut. "I have to go home," she said. The word home landed wrong. "Tonight," I asked even though I knew. "Yes." "Tim." She didn't correct me. "I told him I'd stopped seeing you," she said suddenly. The air left my lungs. "You what?" Her eyes flickered. Not guilt. Fear. "I didn't give details," she rushed on. "I didn't say names. I just said it was over." "And is it?" I asked. Silence. That was answer enough. "You lied," I said, more surprised than angry. "I panicked," she said. "He asked if there was someone else." I said no then. She stopped, pressed her fingers to her forehead. "I didn't think he'd push. So now I'm a problem you have to clean up?" The words came out sharper than I meant. She flinched. "Again, that's not fair." "Neither is this." A couple walked past us, close enough to hear the edge in my voice. I lowered it, but the damage was done. My hands curled into fists without permission. "You let me believe we were moving towards something," I said. "And now you're telling him it's over like I never mattered." Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. That hurt worse. "You matter," she said. "That's the problem." She stepped closer, then stopped herself, like she'd hit an invisible wall. "If I choose you," she said slowly, "I blow up a life I spent decades building. I hurt someone who didn't deserve this version of me. And if I don't," her voice cracked just once, "I'll lose something I didn't know I still had the right to want." I swallowed. Hard. "And what did you decide?" I asked. She looked at me then, really looked, and for a terrifying second, I thought she might say goodbye. Instead, she said, "I told him I needed time." That wasn't the twist. The twist was when she added, barely above a whisper, "But he didn't believe me." My heart thudded. "He asked who you were," she continued. "And I think he already knows." I took a step back, the weight of it crashing in all at once. This wasn't quiet anymore. This wasn't contained. This was about to become real in a way neither of us could control. She reached for me again, instinctive. I didn't pull away. And somewhere between her fear and my stubborn hope, I realized whatever happened next would decide everything that I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face when she said he might already know, how fear and relief lived there at the same time. By morning, I was done pretending this was something happening to us instead of something we were choosing not to face. She texted just after noon. "He wants to meet you." No greeting. No softening. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then typed back. Okay. We met at her place. Neutral ground, Sheets said, as if there was anything neutral left. He was calmer than I expected. Polite. Measured. The kind of man who'd learned how to keep his voice even when everything inside him wasn't. We shook hands. He looked at me like he was trying to reconcile the idea of me with the reality standing in front of him. You're younger than I imagined, he said. I didn't take the bait. I care about her. He nodded once, as if that confirmed something he'd already decided. She stood between us, arms folded tight across her chest, like she was holding herself together by force. When he turned to her, his tone softened. Is this real? He asked. Or is it a reaction? She didn't answer right away. I watched her breathe. In, out, steadying. It's real, she said, and it scared me enough to lie. That landed harder than anything else. He closed his eyes, opened them, looked at the floor, then back at her. Do you want to stay married? The room went quiet. No cars outside. No neighbors. Just the sound of my own pulse. She looked at me then, not asking, not apologizing, just seeing me fully, finally, like she knew whatever she said next would follow her forever. No, she said. I want to stop pretending. He didn't shout, didn't accuse. He nodded slowly, like he was letting something go piece by piece. I deserve honesty, he said. Yes, she replied. You do. He left a few minutes later. Took his coat, his dignity, a chapter of her life with him. The door closed behind him with a quiet finality that made my chest ache. She didn't cry. She sank onto the couch like her legs had finally given out, stared at her hands, then laughed, once breathless and disbelieving. I just did that, she said. I sat beside her, close but not touching. Gave her space to choose again. She turned to me, eyes glassy now. I don't know what comes next. I don't either, I said. But I know what I don't want. She waited. I don't want to be your secret, I said. And I don't want you choosing me because you're afraid of being alone. She nodded. I'm choosing you because I'm tired of being invisible to myself. That did it. I reached for her then, slow, giving her time to pull away if she needed to. She didn't. Her hand slid into mine like it had always known where to go. When we kissed, it wasn't urgent. It wasn't desperate. It was steady and real and terrifying in its simplicity. She rested her forehead against mine afterward. This is going to be complicated. I smiled, breath shaky. I know, but as she stayed there, didn't pull back, didn't apologize, didn't look over her shoulder, I understood something clearly for the first time. Whatever came next, we weren't running anymore. We were standing in it. Together. The weeks after weren't cinematic. No music swells. No perfect timing. Just mornings that felt unfamiliar and evenings that came too fast. She moved slowly through the unraveling of her old life. Papers signed. Conversations that drained her. Moments where she stared out windows a little too long, like she was mourning something that had already been gone for years. I didn't rush her. I didn't try to fix it. I learned that loving her meant standing close without pulling. People noticed. The looks came first. The pauses. The way conversations shifted when we enter a room together. A 46-year-old woman and a man barely into his 20s didn't fit neatly into anyone's expectations, and we stopped trying to make it easier for them. That surprised me, the way she stopped shrinking. One night, sitting on her couch with our knees touching, she said, I forgot what it felt like to be chosen without being managed. I didn't answer right away. I just tightened my fingers around hers. I told her about my fears, too. About waking up one day and realizing I was a phase. About the quiet voice in my head that asked if I'd eventually resent the weight of everything she carried before me. She listened, really listened. Didn't dismiss it. Didn't promise things she couldn't guarantee. I can't give you certainty, she said, but I can give you honesty. Every day. That was enough. We built something small and real. Coffee in the mornings. Shared silences that didn't need filling. Her head on my shoulder while we watched shows neither of us cared about. My hand on the small of her back in public. Not possessive, present. The age gap didn't disappear. It just stopped being the loudest thing in the room. What mattered was how she looked at me when I spoke. What mattered was that I stopped feeling like I had to earn my place beside her. What mattered was that when she reached for me, it wasn't hesitation anymore. It was choice. One evening, weeks later, we walked past the cafe where it had started. Same bell, same tables, different us. She squeezed my hand. Funny how something so small changes everything. I smiled. You caught me looking. She met my eyes, steady and sure. And you didn't look away. That was the truth of it. That was always the truth. We didn't end up perfect. We ended up honest. We ended up choosing each other, even when it would have been easier not to. We ended up standing in the quiet aftermath of hard decisions and realizing neither of us wanted to be anywhere else. Some loves arrive loudly. Ours stayed. And if you're still here, let me ask you, have you ever felt seen by someone who wasn't supposed to see you? Have you ever wanted something that scared you because it meant letting go of who you used to be? And if love asked you to choose between comfort and truth, what would you do?